Hi everyone, I'm a third year resident. I have some family in LA. My parents are Mexican immigrants and they settled down. My extended family settled down in LA. And I have super enjoyed my time at Harbor getting to serve a similar patient population as my family. I'm going to turn off my video during this talk because I will be very Mexican and be cooking refried beans. But I will hop on for the Q&A after.
Can I have some too, Natalie? That sounds great. Let's go over to Lily.
Hey guys, I'm Lily. I'm one of the second years. I did not do a sub-I at Harbor, but mainly because I did not actually know I was going to do EM until the end of July of my fourth year. So it was a little late to the game. But fell in love with EM at my home program in New York, and then have just come to love it so much more being at Harbor. Um, I will be hopping off a little bit earlier, transition to my phone because I'm going with Joyce to go play volleyball by the beach with our Harbor team, which will be great. But excited to meet all you guys. I'll go over to outgoing chief Karen.
Hi guys, I'm Karen Siguenza. My name used to be Collins, so if you look me up, it says Collins, also me. I'm one of the fourth years, about to graduate and sadly leave Harbor for now at least. Yeah, was there another question? I don't think so. Oh, I did do a sub at Harbor back in pre-COVID days, 2019, when I met Manny Singh for the first time and Ryan Pedigo. And yeah, still here, still love it. Getting very nostalgic and very sad, but also
Just a
happy.
few months left. Wild.
Crazy.
All right, Tiffany, you're up next.
Hi everyone, I'm Tiffany. I'm one of the current PGY2s at Harbor. I used to be a UCLA medical student, so therefore I've had a lot of sub-I experience at Harbor. I've done the PEM sub-I, the regular adult EM sub-I, and the ultrasound sub-I. So really, if you have any questions about any of those rotations, I'm happy to answer them. Like Natalie, I'll also probably be cooking during this call, but in an Asian way. So I'll be cooking some rice. So I'll turn off my video shortly.
Wow, Tiff, sounds like you also really love Harbor.
I do. If you couldn't tell, I'm still stoked to be at Harbor.
All right, Caesar, you're up. I think you're muted. There you
Sorry.
go.
Yeah, I was muted for a bit. Sorry, I'm on vacation, so as you can tell, I'm like very vacationing hard. I'm Caesar. I also did a sub-I back in the day, and honestly, I actually fell in love with Harbor before I did my sub-I. The mission spoke out to me like really, really hardcore, like just taking care of the community and just like the population's most vulnerable patients really, really spoke out to me. And once I did the sub-I, it just confirmed everything that I ever thought, to be honest. And so I remember actually talking to Manny, and I was just like, can you help me like get into this program? And I'm very happy to be here and also very happy to help you guys in whatever way to be able to recruit y'all.
Thank you so much, Caesar. All right. So with that, let's jump into our presentation. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. All right, slideshow. Great. All right. So basic timeline. We're going to talk our outline. First off, we're going to talk about kind of VSLO, so visiting student learning opportunities, and SLO, which is standardized letters of evaluation, because, emergency medicine, we love our acronyms because we don't have time to say complete words. Second up, we're going to do some really quick tips for sub-Is in general. We're going to have a dedicated webinar for this a little bit later, but we'll give you a little teaser trailer. Third, we're going to talk about Harbor UCLA's emergency medicine program as a whole, as well as our specific available rotations, and also our scholarship that we have available for underrepresented minority students. And then lastly, we'll have a Q&A and panel. And just kind of on that note, you can ask questions throughout. Feel free to unmute, feel free to raise your hand, feel free to type in the chat. Also, you can take out your phones and scan this QR code. So this is actually just a code that you can scan to write in any sort of anonymous questions. And these questions will go over kind of either throughout the presentation or also in the dedicated Q&A portion. But once again, feel free to unmute at any time. We are all ears and we have many people looking at the chat, so we can also kind of fill that in as we go. All right, everyone got the QR code? We can also throw it in the chat real quick. Boom.
Already did,
right
Joyce. Yeah.
there. Amazing. Okay, cool. So starting off, be slow and slow, because once again, acronyms are great. So who are you? You're a medical student, hopefully applying to emergency medicine this year. And so hashtag EMbound. And who are we? We're the Harbor UCLA Emergency Medicine Residency. So what is VSLO and why even do away rotations in the first place? So away rotations are, I would say, basically necessary for emergency medicine. A lot of other specialties, you can kind of get away with just doing things at your home institute and then apply, but EM, really, you need to do an away rotation in order to show that you can function in another emergency medicine program and also get that standardized letter of evaluation. It's an opportunity to explore a different city, maybe explore a different patient population. Academic centers are very different than county centers, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. It could be a completely different learning environment. And then also it can really put your sight on like, hey, I want to test out this place as a possible future residency program. A lot of programs actively recruit from their own sub-internships, and a lot of their current residents you'll find have done medical student rotations with them. And so it's like almost like a pipeline to that residency program. So if there's a residency program that you're interested in, it might be a good idea to do an away rotation there. So what is the SLO? It's the standardized letter of evaluation. So you need 2 formal SLOs, residency-based SLOs. Typically, this means one home institute one and one away rotation. Some home medical schools do not have an emergency medicine rotation attached to them. Therefore, you would need to do 2 aways to get that, to get those 2 SLOs. There's also, to make it even more confusing, different types of SLOs. So there's like the standard EM SLO that everyone really values as like, that's like the number one and 2 things that you need. You can get other standardized letter of evaluations from subspecialty SLOs. So that would include your rotations like toxicology, pediatrics, ultrasound. So those would be examples of subspecialty SLOs where it would be still like an emergency medicine doctor writing it, but it's not like the formal big SLO from a residency-based EM program. Same sort of thing goes for non-residency-based EM programs. So for example, if your home institute has an emergency department and you rotate through it, but they don't happen to have EM residents at that site, the attendings can still write you a letter. It doesn't qualify as the full SLO. And then you can also get OSLOs, which are basically off-service or other rotation SLOs. So if you get, for example, internal medicine or family medicine, and you do really well in like surgery, or you have like a mentor in that field that you've known for many years, they can fill out an OSLO for you. So it's just kind of something specific to emergency medicine that they really like these standardized letters as opposed to just having normal letters of recommendations. So what is actually included in the SLO itself? So it's going to go over some details about the rotation. It might include like your grade on the rotation, honors, near honors. And then the big thing is that it actually compares you to your peers. So it says either at the end of it, like based on our rotation with this student, we presume them to be in the top 10% of our rank list. We think they're going to be top third, middle third, bottom third. And then it also has some additional specific comments on how you perform during the rotation itself. This is completely anonymous. You will not know kind of where you quote unquote rank, but something to keep in mind also, it marks what rotation number it is. So for example, if your first EM rotation, you're like brand new, don't know what you're doing, you end up getting like a middle third or something along those lines. And then you really learn throughout that rotation. And then the next one, you crush it, you get like top 10%, top third. That's really good because they can see that you kind of improved with time. So don't be too scared about kind of these designations because it's kind of like a cumulative thing. They just kind of want to see improvement. I'm going to send out the link to this presentation at the end since I have all your emails. And there's a bunch of links throughout it. But for example, this link just kind of shows you what the SLO actually looks like itself. So it's from the CORD website, which is the Council of Emergency Medicine Directors and Directors in Emergency Medicine. And there's like a med students read here section on it. And so here they have like a video and some other tips and tricks throughout it. But just wanted to highlight that, and we'll make sure to send this whole presentation out at the end. Great, let's keep going. Next thing, when you figure out, okay, I am going to do an away rotation, where should I apply? So a lot of people have different strategies for where they want to go for their away rotations. Some people kind of take the strategy of, say I am from the Midwest, I did medical school in the Midwest, but I really, really, really want to explore New York. So what you can do is you're like, I'm going to do an away rotation in New York in particular to show, one, I'm interested in that area, and two, start forming a connection over there so people can be like, oh, they demonstrated that they would do really well in New York. They did an away rotation here. We should look at their application more closely, and then you can get more interviews in that area. So that's one kind of strategy that some people do. Something that I definitely recommend is trying to explore different types of settings, because in emergency medicine, this varies so broadly. So at Harbor UCLA, we are a county site. We are what we call like an academic lens to a county site. So we do a lot of research and things like that, but our patient population is purely a patient population. That means we're a safety net hospital. That means we see lots of traumas, we study lots of pathologies, we help the neediest people in our society, and it's a very mission-driven place. Like everyone really, really cares about the patients, right? So county is more safety net versus academics, you're gonna get more of your like, oh, transplant patients, like really specific cancer patients. Like you might have some really interesting pathology from that regard, but you're going to be calling consultants a lot more. You'll be like a quaternary center, tertiary center, where you have all these people flying into your center, but you'll be on the phone consulting a lot more. And then community is like, go, try and see as many patients as you can. So for example, I went to an academic medical school at the University of Iowa. And so when I was looking for my sub-Is, I wanted to do kind of more of a county setting. So then when you're on your interviews, you can talk about it. You could be like, oh, I did a little bit of both, and I really liked the aspects of this, and this is why I want to do county, or this is why I want to do academics. And it can also help you kind of figure out what you want to do in the future as well. Like these experiences are really, really helpful. And then also some people just know like, oh, I have family in California, for example. So I want to be able to rotate in California. I know I'll have a place to stay. I'll be able to visit my cousin, my brother, whoever it may be. So those are some different strategies. I included a link here to the EMR residency map. So this can give you an idea of like where the different EM residency programs are. It's interactive, it's pretty cool. So you can like scroll in, and then after you figure out kind of like which list of programs you're interested in, you can specifically see if they're offering sub-I rotations as well. So general timeline. So March, April, so kind of around now is when you're applying to your sub-I rotations. The VSLO just opened yesterday, and you're going to want to try and apply as soon as possible to be able to put yourself out there and get priority on the months that you want to rotate. People will typically do sub-I rotations between May and August, with the majority being kind of June and July is like the real peak of the sub-I season. But some people continue on and do it like September, October, November, December. The only thing that we say is for those later rotations, it's a little bit harder because you're slow. That letter won't be ready at that point in time because they're going to submit it after you've already submitted your application for residency. So that's why we say August is probably like the last one, the last rotation you can do with having that letter ready to go and submitted in your file. September is when you will submit your ERAS application for residency. Wow, sooner than you think. So exciting. And then October through January, you're going to interview for residency. February, March, submit rank list. And then this week is actually the match. So super exciting for all of your peers as well. Okay, so how many programs to apply to? So once again, we want to make sure that you have 2 core EM rotations so you can get those 2 slows. One is typically your home rotation. If they don't have a specific EM residency, then you're going to have to do 2 away rotations. This is all kind of loosely based on surveys, and it really varies, but usually people say like applying to maybe 5 to 7 programs will get you an invitation, but you should definitely consult with your specific advisor, and like other people might tell you different things depending on like, for example, if you have like an absolutely stellar application and you already have a connection there and things like that, and you already have the exact dates that you want, or you applied to the scholarship and got it, that's a different situation than if it's like, oh, I'm just going to throw my application at a place that I haven't heard of, and maybe my application isn't the strongest. So really talk to an individual EM advisor, and they can help guide you in how many programs to apply to. And once again, this does not include subspecialty rotation, peds, EMS, ultrasound, toxicology. All of these you can kind of like add in later on. So for example, if you're really interested in ultrasound, like Manny loves ultrasound, you could be like, oh yeah, like let me come back to like say I wasn't able to do a full sub-I at Harbor because I couldn't dedicate those 4 weeks, or I wanted to go to New York or something along those lines. You could be like, okay, let me come back in September and do a 2-week ultrasound rotation. Because one, you can get exposure to a subspecialty like ultrasound. And two, you can also demonstrate to that program that you're also interested in that specific program and get to meet them and see what it's like in that department. So definitely take advantage of these subspecialty rotations as well. Things to consider. Definitely housing and transportation can be a big barrier to people. There are lots of random scholarships out there. And my advice to you is to try and apply to like the ones that you like qualify for. Even if you don't necessarily get the scholarship, it still demonstrates to that program like, hey, not only am I interested in doing a rotation with you, like I went the extra mile by filling out the scholarship application, like I'm super interested in you. So sometimes like they'll notice those things and try and prioritize you to get rotations. Sometimes you can get grants for international rotations. Sometimes you're like your home institute might be able to cover you, or they have networks of alumni who live in certain areas that might be able to help house you or give you help with housing, things like that. And then also look into those subspecialty rotations. If money is as a factor in terms of like lodging and things, maybe look for more local subspecialty rotations. Okay, so next up is how to apply. So VSLO is kind of a weird program, but you'll make an account, you'll log in, and basically what you'll come to find is almost every single program has a different set of requirements for what they want from you, but most of them have generally more or less the same set of things. So number one thing you're going to want to have is an updated CV. That's something that's almost across the board. Everyone wants an updated CV. Some of the step one, obviously not a score anymore, but having step one completed, sometimes they want the documentation for that. Having a letter of rec from an EM advisor, proof of positive vaccine titers, so like hepatitis B, sometimes they want that, like TB tests, immunization records, proof of BLS certifications, background checks, drug screens, photo. Once again, not all of the programs are going to have every single one of these requirements, but this is just kind of like a general list of things that you're going to want to include. And also what I recommend for you all is like have a folder on your computer at this point that you can kind of start dumping these things into, because it's going to come in handy when you're applying for residency as well. So just start accumulating them now and keep them saved either on your Google Drive, on your desktop, something along those lines, because they're really going to come in handy. Okay, VSLO etiquette. So it's all rolling admission. So what does that mean? It doesn't mean like just deadline, then you find out, and then that's it. It's just kind of all rolling. So that means that you'll kind of send out your application, and then you might hear immediately. It might take several months before you hear anything. Sometimes you never hear back, like a quote unquote rejection. Your application just kind of goes into the ether. All of that's really normal for VSLO. The thing that I would recommend for you all is like, for example, if it's like you have your June schedule that's blocked off, and I know that in June I want to do an EM sub-I, and I applied to like 4 places, and say one of those places replied back, we have a spot, we will get you set up with it. I should talk to those other 3 places and say, hey, I'm going to remove my application. Thank you so much. I got accepted to a different rotation. Just because you don't want it to be like you got accepted here and you're still holding out. And then you're like, oh, I like this place better. I'm going to take this place instead and then reject this first place. That's really bad etiquette to kind of like go back on your word and say like, psych, just kidding. I like don't want to apply, don't want to go there anymore. And you can kind of burn a bridge that way. So as soon as you hear back from one place, like lock it down, tell the other people, and then kind of move on to like the next block. Yeah, just because there's limited spaces for sub-Is, so you don't want to be that person who's like taking more than you can take, or like changing last second and then them having an open sub-I space that could have gone to a different student. So that being said, try and prioritize the places that you really want to rotate at, and maybe apply to those first and do like an iterative process, like apply to a few of those first. If you don't hear back, then you can add more, because you would hate to apply to like 10 places and get like your 10th choice when you actually wanted to go to that first choice and you would have been offered it. Here's just a list of some other references that I'll send out. There's a little webinar that they did a couple of years ago that was pretty helpful and kind of walked people through the VSLO and kind of the nitty-gritty details. Emmer and Cord have a student advising guide, and chapter 5 talks about applying to away rotations and kind of what to do to prepare, things like that. Sometimes you'll hear people say VSAS, which is kind of the old term for VSLO, which is visiting student something, same sort of thing. Okay, Woohoo! That was a lot of information. Congratulations, you got your preferred rotation. Woo! So now what, right? So let's talk about just a handful of tips and tricks for your sub-I rotations in particular. And once again, we're going to do a full-on session about this in about May. So keep on the lookout for that, and we'll go kind of more in depth about things that you should do to prepare. So before your sub-I, try and kind of sort out your housing and transportation situation. Reach out to mentors like within your own department, because they can also help connect you to places like the academic world of emergency medicine is very small. Like everyone kind of knows everyone. So being able to reach out to your own home institute, maybe they know someone at that specific site that you're going to that you can help get connected with. Start studying a little bit, review kind of like how ED flow works, review ED style presentations, and also start picking out some on-shift resources. For example, here's like a list of a bunch of different resources. So there's like LIEM Bridge to Emergency Medicine, which is kind of this full-on free curriculum that's online. I really, really, really recommend the EM Clerkship podcast. He has a section called Crush Your Slow, which is basically this like 6 session podcast that goes into specific tips that can help you do really well on your away rotation so that you can have like an amazing standardized letter of evaluation at the end of it. MRAP has some great things, the PEM playbook. Basically, there's a whole bunch of different resources. And one that I really wanted to highlight was Wickham. So this is actually made by Harbor. It's kind of like the Wikipedia of emergency medicine. And it's super helpful because it's like an on-shift tool you can use to help formulate your plan. So for example, you're like, oh, if someone has coming in with like burning when they pee, it's like, what are all the things I should consider? What specific things should I order? It's like a very like quick, up-to-date version, just like a couple pages long as opposed to up-to-date, which is like 700 pages every single time. There's EMRA, MD Calc for all of your nice like heart scores and things like that. And then PD Stat is really good for Peds EM. I think it costs like a couple dollars, but it's very worth it for some specific help with dosing for Peds. Maybe get that as a resident. Okay, tips for success during your sub-I: keep studying, asking for feedback, very important, being proactive throughout the shift, trying to like figure out ways to help patient flow, trying to anticipate your needs for your residents. Reflecting daily on what you did well, what you can work on, getting to hang out with residents. Really try, like when you're on these rotations, try and see what it would be like to be a resident at that place. Is this a place that you like? What did you like? What did you not like? What do you want to look for in other programs? Exploring the area, and then also just be kind to yourself. Like sub-I season can be a little bit stressful that you're trying to impress people, but also like, hey, you made it this far. Give yourself like pat on the back. Like you're doing a good job. Keep it up. Okay. All right, so that was handful. That was all kind of our VSLO slow information. And so now we're transitioning over and we're going to chat more about kind of the Harbor UCLA Emergency Medicine program as a whole and talk about some of the rotations that we offer as well. So first off, something that was confusing me not being from Los Angeles, there are 3 main hospitals within Los Angeles, or 3 main emergency medicine residencies within Los Angeles itself. There's LA County, Harbor UCLA. We are over here, we're in the South Bay, and we are a full county site. Number 2, there's LA County General, or LAG, formerly known as LAC-USC. They're also under the same contract as us, and they're fully county as well. They're more in the downtown area. And then the 3rd site is UCLA. I know it's confusing. We're Harbor UCLA and they're UCLA. We are different, but they're more located here in Westwood area, and they also go over to Olive View as well. So those are kind of the 3 main programs within Los Angeles, and they're a mix of county and academic. Whereas the other 2 programs, Harbor UCLA US and LA General, are purely county programs. So our catchment area, we actually cover kind of South LA and South Bay. So we cover areas like Compton, Inglewood, Carson, Lawndale, Long Beach. This whole area is basically where we cover for where our patients come from. And we are once again, a safety net hospital as a county site. We have over 500 beds in our hospital, level 1 trauma, level 1 peds trauma, critical care, STEMI, the whole shebang, right? Our patients are largely Latino and Black, and then a smattering of other ethnicities and races as well. And we have a large diversity in the languages that people speak, with over 50% having limited English proficiency, with the vast majority of them speaking Spanish in particular. So because of that, we definitely need Spanish speakers. We have in-person interpreters as well as phone interpreters available, but if you speak Spanish, that's something we very highly seek, and can be very helpful in helping with our patients and connecting with our patients. But once again, we do have in-person interpreters as well as phone interpreters to help out. Okay, so jumping into different rotations at Harbor that we have for students. So we have three main different types of rotations. We have our formal EM sub-I, which is our 4-week rotation. For that rotation, you will be getting a standardized letter of evaluation that we talked about. We have either 2 or 4-week ultrasound rotations. That's under, and you'll get the subspecialty SLO. And then lastly, we have our pediatric EM rotation. That's also 4 weeks. You'll get your subspecialty. The VSLO opened up yesterday, and you can whip out your phones real quick and scan this QR code. This is going to be our Linktree QR code. This will have the links to kind of our webinar signups, as well as the application and our scholarship application and everything like that. And once again, it's a quick turnaround. Like, we're going to start offering rotations on 3/18. So if you are interested in a rotation with us, like, please get your application in as soon as possible so that we can start reviewing it. And we're going to start offering spots. But once again, it is rolling basis. If, for example, you don't hit this 3/18 deadline, but you will submit it a little bit later, feel free to submit it. Always, we're going to give our emails at the end. Feel free to email us at any time, ask questions, things like that. So going into our first rotation, which is our formal sub-I rotation, you can expect to work about 12 shifts per month. It's going to be broken up into day shifts, which are like 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., swing shifts, which are about 4 p.m. to 1 a.m., and night shifts, which are like midnight to 8 a.m. You'll have a 3-day orientation with procedures lab, so you'll get some really good hands-on skills. You'll have a nursing shift where you'll work with our fabulous nurses, and you'll have a day to do an EMS ride along, which is also super fun. You'll like hop on the ambulance, you'll go on all the runs with them. It's one of our students' favorite things that they get to do. And something that's also very unique to Harbor is the first and last hour of every single adult ED shift is a protected teaching rounds time. So that means that we all sit in the room together, we all chat about the patients that are on the board, and we have dedicated time to discuss patient care and to talk about different topics and to answer questions, things like that. So that's something that you'll get to see. Obviously, we teach throughout the shift as well, but this is nice that and very unique to our program that we have dedicated hour at the beginning and hour at the end for teaching. As soon as you start the rotation, you'll have the option to opt into getting a mentor, which I highly recommend that you do, and you'll be assigned both a resident and an attending mentor. You can grab coffee or lunch before the rotation, middle of the rotation, you'll touch base. They can give you like tips and tricks of like, oh, when you work with X attending, make sure to say this and not this, or like whatever you need while you're here in the area. We try and support you however we can. We have weekly conferences that happen on Thursdays. And also something that's really special about our rotation at Harbor is we have department funded socials specifically for medical students with our residents. So we'll go out to a brewery or a restaurant or go out to the beach and get some pizza, and really try to spend time with our sub-Is to get to know them. Lots of procedures to go around. So we try and get our students hands-on with as many procedures as possible. And another thing that's really unique about Harbor is we have a dedicated social emergency medicine curriculum that's built into the sub-I. So this means that right at the start of your rotation, you'll meet with Leolia and Dan, 2 of our PGY3 residents, and they'll get to chat with you about different social EM initiatives at Harbor, different resources that we have, and then you'll write a reflection, and then later on you'll have a discussion within your rotation about things that you observed and interactions that you noticed. And you have the opportunity also to get involved with community engagement. We have our food pharmacy, we have our medication-assisted treatment, and we're going to go more into some of our social EM initiatives at a later webinar as well. And then most importantly, you get to be best friends with Manny, and that's the best thing ever. So, so that's the best part of the sub-I. All right. Next up, we have our ultrasound sub-I, also great rotation. You'll do about 9 scanning shifts in about 2 weeks if you choose to do the 2-week rotation. Harbor is very strong for ultrasound. We have lots of amazing ultrasound faculty that are kind of nationally renowned, and then a bunch of national organizations. And you'll learn kind of alongside residents. So residents also take ultrasound rotations as well. So you'll be scanning with residents, and they can help you out, and kind of vice versa. We have ultrasound conference that happens where you get to review some images. You can jump into regular conferences as well that we have on the Thursday mornings. Another thing that's unique to Harbor is that we're really incorporating TEE, so transesophageal echocardiograms, especially during our resuscitation. So for example, like CPR, we could do like live images on like how the compressions are doing, and you can see like images of the heart. It's pretty wild that we're doing this. You'll also be paired with a mentor. You'll get to go on the social outings with the residents as well. And you can even check out a butterfly and scan your roommates and family. Take a look at their hearts, see how they're beating, things like that. Next, we have our pediatric EM sub-I. You'll do 12 shifts in 1 month, attend the conferences. You also can actually have the opportunity to go to some outpatient clinics and modules. We have our child life team. You'll be paired with a mentor, and then also have the social outings as well. So also a great rotation. We have a dedicated pediatric emergency department within our grander emergency department. So it's nice to have these shifts as well. Whew, lots of information. I really wanted to highlight this particular page. I don't know why oh, there it is. Boom, $2,000. So we have a underrepresented minority or underrepresented in medicine sub-I scholarship for $2,000. And something that I wanted to stress is a lot of programs have scholarships available, but it's like they have like one scholarship or like maybe two, and they'll get like 20, 30, 40 applicants, right, for this like one scholarship. We're lucky enough that our program really supports these initiatives, that we have good amount of funding. So we have, I think, about 12 scholarships that we're able to give out. So please, if you're interested in doing a rotation with us, don't let cost be a factor. Please apply to our sub-I scholarship. The deadline for applications is March 31st. But once again, the sooner the better, just because we're starting to give out offers for rotations March 18th. So if you're able to fill out this application like within the next week or two, you're going to be set up much better to actually get the scholarship itself. So please apply. We have the money to give, and we want to have as many diverse applicants apply and rotate with us. Whew, that was a whole lot of me talking. Just wanted to highlight some of these things. We have our harboremdei@gmail.com. If you have any questions, that's the same email that we sent out to send you the Zoom link. So feel free to ask us any questions on there. If you're like, hey, I really liked Lily when we met her on the intros and I want to talk to her more, you can always just email us and we can connect you to Lily. Instagram, Twitter/X, we have our handles over here. So feel free to follow us. And then we have our general website, which you can also Google. For future webinars, so our next one is going to be kind of how to succeed in your EM sub-I. We're probably going to do this one in May instead of June. How to be a successful EM applicant, social EM, DEI at Harbor, why Harbor overall, and then some interview tips. That's going to be down in October. So now that you're on our webinar list, you'll just get one email before each of these, kind of just saying like, hey, here's the Zoom link. Hope to see you there. No spam or anything like that. We'll just let you know when these webinars are. Whew. All right. So last thing, just real quick. I know I keep saying last thing, but here's just a list of some emails. There's the Harbor EM chief email as well. So feel free to add that. We have Natalie, who's one of our wonderful DEI chairs, Leolia, me, Naresh, Brad, Kenny, all the EM incoming chiefs. And then obviously here's Manny Singh, who's our clerkship director, whose email is over here. And I'll be sending this PowerPoint out. So last bit, we're going to jump in and do the Q&A/panel. You can either ask in the chat, unmute, scan this code, and put in the question anonymously. Totally up to you, but this is kind of more of like the free time to ask your questions. And thank you for listening. All right. Anything I
Hi,
missed?
Joyce. Maybe I
Hi.
can. Hi, I'll highlight one question. I'm Leolia, everybody. I'm on shift. I'm taking a break. There was a question I think that's being answered, how our relationship is with trauma. Does anyone?
Ooh, yeah, that's a great
Sorry,
question.
I was like
Yeah.
writing that down, but I think it's pretty
Yeah.
like, from a tending point of view, we're pretty collegial with the trauma tending. So I think traumas, EM runs a primary, secondary survey, chest tubes. If they're emergent, right? Whoever's on whichever side, we're on the right, they're on the left. Thoracotomies are done jointly, right? Depending on if the senior wants to do it, but we do the airway. Anesthesia does come in for our very advanced traumas, but they're mostly there to ensure that there's a working OR if they need to be redlined more so than anything else, right? And if we need them for like the fourth time we're trying to intubate a patient that's crucial, so be it, right? We need to swallow our pride and get them to do what's best for the patient. Otherwise, you know what I mean? Craigs, whoever's holding the blade, right? On the right side of the bed, right? Like they'll be like, oh, I want to do the Craig. That's why I carry around 3 scalpels in my white coat. You never know when you need to do a crike, and and everyone's running around with a scalpel, like I'm doing it right, and I have it there. So that's the times I've done it. So, anyways, hopefully that makes sense. And besides trauma, other specialties very collegial, right? With IM, right? With peds, ortho. A lot of our subspecialists are from UCLA, which is great. So we get to learn a little bit about how they do things at a big ivory tower, right? And when they come to county, it's great because they actually show us how to drain PTAs correctly or periapical abscesses, right? So you definitely can learn a lot of tips and tricks from these subspecialties if you're attending to know how to do it themselves, or if there's something unique and that you can go from there. 3 scalpels, yes, I do have 3 scalpels, and I give the scalpels to people. I'm like, hey, you have a scalpel on you? If you don't, here you go. Don't stab yourself with that scalpel, right? We don't want that to happen. So
Manny also carries like 40 pens in his book.
I carry pens because they're lying around, So if your pen
Yeah,
is
hide
lost,
your
I
pen.
probably have it in my white coat.
I really want to highlight that from a resident perspective too, how collegial we are with our trauma residents and attendings too. They're all like super nice and friendly. I've had like only experiences I'm only a resident at a few sites, but I have been very pleasantly surprised with how kind folks are. And I think people who also rotate from other institutions, they state that as well. And very fair way of like dividing up procedures. So when we get traumas, I know different institutions do them differently. For us, the residents do the primary and secondary survey, and then we have like a joint discussion regarding like next steps and interventions. But the trauma teams are there for the sicker patients.
Yeah, I was so impressed when I first got to Harbor. I was like, wow, the trauma attendings are so nice, and they know all of us by name, and there's one wears like a minion hat all the time. So they're very friendly people, and they work very closely with us. So it's great. That's a great question.
Yeah, I also personally never had any problems in my past 2 years with any of the consultants, to be honest. Even with trauma, there's never a problem of us fishing or fighting for procedures. It's very clearly cut out and laid out as to who's doing what. And the trauma attending is always happy to supervise you also to do a procedure. So I've never really had any problems.
And for other rotation, for other specialties, as interns, we rotate on basically every service in the hospital. And as a result, it means that we meet people from every service. So when you're in the ED more your second year and onward, you're usually consulting someone and have worked with. So it's great. And we have really good relationships with them from that year where we spend a little bit more time off service. So it helps. You're almost always calling a friend, which is awesome.
I think a good question to highlight from the anonymous questions is someone just asked, have you had residents take maternity or paternity leave? Does that set them back for graduation time? I don't know if we touched on it during the presentation, but we actually have a maternity paternity policy now that our previous chiefs enacted this year. And you have at the very minimum 4 weeks, you have 6 weeks of protected time, and then you can get added on time with your selective as well, that you don't have to make up for up to 4 weeks. And then we figure out how to make that extra 2 weeks work for you. And then there's protected time on shift for pumping. And this extends out to an extended leave policy as well that we have fleshed out.
Yeah, and for people who are on,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to highlight for the people, it's ABEM from the way that it's been explained to us by program leadership. It's ABEM policy that they make residents work a certain number of weeks in the ER. And then the two we've had like a couple residents pregnant over the last year, and the 2 extra weeks they have to do, they're just going to be helping out with orientation. So, which I'm sure will still be hard with a couple babies, but they're not going to be doing extra shifts. And then I also want to highlight something unique that one of our amazing residents, who's right here, helped advocate for. Is that no night shifts for people who are pregnant the first and third trimester, which is really, really unique to our program. And she had like used a previous research study to help us pass that, and it was supported like by residents and faculty.
Yeah, we didn't
And
have
like
this
among the
policy.
residents too, we were all like very like willing to switch shift out while that policy was going into place.
Yeah, we're definitely like very pro for especially females in medicine, right? Like when it comes to like pregnancy, and especially like when it comes to like I think our next battle is going to be trying to get fertility, I guess, benefits, right, for female residents in CIR, right? But I think this last year, at least, you know, I think I was venting with her. I'm like, hey, listen, we need to do this, right? And we like shook the cages, and luckily it got passed, right? With obviously with the support of Dr. Pedigo, our PD is, and the residency leadership. So there's still a lot we can do, right? And we always, you know, encourage females to let us know whatever we can do to help them out, especially when it comes to pregnancy, things of that sort. And there are so many Harbor babies this year, so it seems like it's gonna be a girl gang this year of all the babies.
I also wanted to add that our program is very supportive when it comes to taking leave for other circumstances. I personally have multiple chronic illnesses and had to take some time off during intern year. And the program was really supportive in trying to find a way to that I could maintain payroll so I wouldn't have to be behind on rent, and moving my elective time to make that work. And then also providing resources in case I wasn't able to go back to work as expected and needed to like apply for short-term disability. We've also had like other co-residents who've had pressing family situations come up, and everyone is very supportive on like trying to find coverage for that person so that they can go be there with their family. I remember that was a question I asked a lot during my interview or like application season. It was like during resident socials, I'd always ask, like, how does your program handle when people need to take time off for whatever circumstance? And you know, some of the answers were like kind of like, oh yeah, like we just find a way to make it work, or like they make up the time later. But I think it's very much like everyone wants to chip in to try to help that person through that time. So I think that speaks to kind of like the culture of our program, hopefully.
Guys, I just wanted to, I guess, introduce Dr. Pedigo. He's our PD, right, this past year. So Ryan and I were medical student classmates, residency classmates, right? Or faculty classmates, I guess, in a sense, right? But he's on right now, so thank you for joining, Ryan, and showing your face to the students. Is there anything you want to talk about, Ryan, or introduce? He's driving.
I am driving, so I'm not going to show my face to the students. However, sorry, I just got off of all my meetings, but I'm actually driving to my buddy group, meeting up with some residents for dinner. So I do have a 20-minute drive, so I am absolutely available. If people have questions, you can ask me anything, but I won't be on camera because otherwise you're just going to see me driving, which is like a little bit weird. But ask me anything. If someone says something in the chat, just like if someone can read it to me, because I'm also not going to be reading my chats.
Thanks, Ryan. Here's a question I think someone asked. I'm going to the next one. Are DO applicants required to take step 1 as well? So I think my understanding is we're accepting COMLEX, Ryan, and correct me if I'm wrong. You are
So you know, it's a tough question to answer. So for our program, 100% COMLEX only is okay. You absolutely do not need to pay for a second set of licensure exams, which have like absolutely no additive value since you already took the COMLEX. However, that is like my position statement on that is that the step 1, you taking step 1, step 2, etc., being useless is not universally shared by other programs. And so I would talk to your advisors to make sure the programs you're applying to, you know, don't have a different philosophy on that. But my personal philosophy is that if you have a COMLEX score, you absolutely do not need to take the USMLE just to also take a second set of standardized tests.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. gonna go on to keep going with the questions, but feel free to interrupt, guys, if you have anything
I
in mind.
can start answering one of the questions. So what qualities do you look for in your medical students? I think it's probably the same qualities that we look for in our residents. And just thinking about like my current residents and who we attract to the program, we're looking for people who are hardworking, thoughtful of each other, are advocates for their patients, are committed to working with an underserved patient population, are mindful of the social circumstances that a lot of our patients are facing. People who are interested in education, interested in learning. I think that's a good place to start if anyone else has any other attributes you would like to add.
I think we'll talk a lot about it during our How to Be a Great Sub-I one. I think that's next month. But making sure that you're taking ownership of your patients when you sign up for your patients, following through and making sure that their diagnostic workup is complete and going through with the plan that you created is always a standout for medical students on rotation. I think it's a very hard thing to do. And if you can accomplish that, it really shows that you're engaged in the emergency department. In addition to everything Natalie said.
I would emphasize the caring for the patient population piece. All of us, chose to do EM specifically at Harbor because we wanted to work with an underserved patient population. We wanted to incorporate social determinants of health into a holistic care of a patient. So, if you can kind of have that mindset when you're rotating with us, hopefully, and thinking about your patient, thinking about what is their follow-up plan. Do they have a primary care doctor they can go to? Is it feasible for them to go to whatever clinic 30 minutes away from where they are if they don't have transportation, things of that nature.
Does anyone have anything else on that one?
Yeah, I was gonna say, just to add on, right, is just these ones for me, I see students, they're amazing, right? They work hard, but I think when you work with the residents, right, that you wanna, like Naresh mentioned, take ownership, right? Either you're sub-I, right? I want you guys to function at intern level, see patients, take ownership of them, right? Take that extra step, especially, at Harbor, we see a lot of these social determinants of health in our patients, right? That we don't just treat them and treat them per se, right? We try to address the core issue, why they came there, right? So for example, someone's there for repeated hyperglycemia visits, right? And you're like, why aren't you taking your medicine, right? You need to take your medicine. That doesn't really solve the issue, right? It could be they can't afford the medicine. Maybe they can't store their insulin, things of that sort that we try to address from a more of a holistic point of view, right? And I think Leolia and Dan, who run the social EM component of our rotation, really try to emphasize that and show how that can make you a better EM doctor. And that's just something Harbor's been teaching for many, many years. It's just come now to the forefront of EM as well as other specialties that we should be addressing these healthcare disparities, right? And you can definitely see it's definitely making a change. Like Medicare is incorporating it in our reimbursement for our charts, right? If someone's obese, has healthcare literacy issues or access to care, right? Those are very, very important, right? And it's something that's definitely teachable. It'll definitely make you a better sub-I, especially if you start here, go to somewhere else. They'll be very amazed that you're able to address the patient's need at a holistic level, at a deep core level. Anyways.
Manny, we have several logistical questions at the end of the document. Do you mind answering them?
Yeah, let's do it. If you do ultrasound or peds elective, can you get a slow from there, or is it better to get it from an actual sub-I? So we write actually subspecialty slows per cord, very similar to a slow. In general, you should have at least one, preferably two slows for this coming year. If you're not able to do for whatever reasons, say maybe financial and all that, you're not able to stay a full month at a place like in LA or New York where costs may be really, really high. I think I'm okay with actually a subspecialty slow. let me see what Dr. Pedigo thinks since we have him for another few more minutes. Ryan, what do you think about subspecialty slows? How many slows we need? What do you think?
Yeah, so ideally 2 slows. I would say that yes, there are some specialty slows and there are O slows or off-service slows. The biggest challenge for us as residency directors is, you know, I know the clerkship directors, I know that they write 50 slows per year, and we know the distribution of their ranks, right? So we know that if you're top 10% at LA General, you know, I know John Wagner is going to give like 8 people out of the 80 to 90 people that rotate there top 10%. So I'm like, cool, like that absolutely means something. Like, that's great. Most of the people who write subspecialty slows write like 1 a year, maybe write 2 per year. So when I see someone says, oh, this person is top 10%, I'm like, that's great, but like compared to what? And so, you know, slows are much more powerful than any other letter. That said, I think doing a PEDS rotation or doing an ultrasound rotation is a great way to see a program if you don't want to do like a formal sub-I there. And the letters are still important. Like, they still will, you know, change my likelihood of offering an interview invitation to someone. Just certainly not to the same amount that a slow would.
Awesome.
Can we also ask, someone asked, are there any possible adjustments to the internship dates since schools may be on different timelines?
Generally, no, but I'll let Manny describe that.
Say again?
So I think, yeah, if there's any
to the sub internship, right? Or the internship?
No, this was for internship. I think it says internship.
Oh, definitely
Yeah.
not. Oh, and you know, when internship starts, there's like various HR and onboarding activities, actually same as a sub internship. But there's like a lot of things that you have to do to be onboarded, and that process is done like synchronously at the beginning of and leading up to your first academic year and during the beginning of your academic year. And there's way too many onboarding tasks where a deviation in that could be reasonably accommodated.
Yeah, when it comes to the sub internship, like we have like really specific days, and that's just because similar to Ryan said, we have like 3 days of orientation where it includes like getting you onboarded, getting your badge, going over EMR, doing actual educational activities with residents. That takes a lot of coordination. Have I done some things off cycle? Yeah, and that's yes, but that's more case by case due to really circumstances for sub-Is who got the slots offered. So that varies in that sense. One question someone was asking is on the VSLO, ultrasound rotation can be 4 weeks on a case-to-case basis. How do you request it? Just email me and I'll make it work out. Happy to. 2 weeks is great. If you want to do more, I love ultrasound, right? So it makes it's like it brings joy to my ears and a tear down my eye, right? When you want to do more ultrasound, right? It's definitely a skill that we all need to get better at. And just like any skill, the more you practice it, the better you'll get at it. So a 2 week, great. You'll become even stronger with a 2 week rotation. But 4 weeks, oh wow, you're gonna really blow a lot of the sub-Is out of the water, right? So highly encourage you guys to do as much ultrasound as possible. It definitely will augment to your history and physical that you have obtained for your patient. I think the next question is, if we apply to multiple sub-I dates, will we only be offered 1 date option accepted? Yes. I will try to go with your specific dates, and if that doesn't work, right, a lot of times you're able to list like what your specifics are on there. If there's anything want me to know, you can definitely email me. I'm very readily available through email, but I will only offer 1 date at a time and give you guys a week to accept. Just like I think Joyce was telling me, right? If I send an acceptance and you're just like holding on to it, and we're number 5 or 10 or lower on your list compared to some other programmer, it's better to let us know so we can offer it to students who definitely want to rotate with us. So I've been giving you a week deadline. In the past, we used to do 2 weeks, and I think we lost out on some other great sub-Is who went elsewhere. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I think one of the concerns that sub interns have is, the match is a pretty organized process, right? Even though it has its faults, but the VSLO is chaos, right? Like there's no unified release date. Like you might hear back from a program immediately, and another program hasn't even started to review their file. So at least from my standpoint, if it doesn't work out with your schedule and you like decline it, like we don't take that negatively or as a sign of disinterest in the program or anything. If you cancel the sub internship like a week before you're scheduled to start and we can't fill it, then like absolutely that will reflect like poorly. But we understand like, I was clerkship director for 5 years, as I think Manny said. And so, there's certainly lots of cases where we realize we'll make an offer and it just doesn't work for you. That's okay, like totally fine. Just make sure you give us advance notice for your decisions.
Awesome, Ryan. The last question I think I have on here is how far in advance do you receive your official sub-I schedule? So my goal is to have it a week out before the rotation starts. Working with our new coordinators, so we're definitely having a transition where our long-term coordinator retired, so we have new coordinators. So our goal is to get everything to you guys early onboarding, early clearance, so you don't run into hiccups. But keep in mind, we are county, so sometimes there are some paperwork snafus that happen along the way, but we do our best and roll with the punches. But you'll have your schedule a week in advance. And then when we meet on the first day amongst the other sub-Is, that's a great opportunity for you to switch things around, especially if you're coming from out of state and you want to give yourself extra time to get back home for your next sub-I to help set up and so forth like that. And we can definitely front load shifts if you want to, if that makes it easier. There's a set number of shifts that we do have on the rotation. As long as you let us know in advance, we're happy to accommodate your schedule in that sense. And then I guess there's one more question. So what's the major difference between your program and UCL Allevue? So this would be a great thing for us to just, I guess, for the residents maybe to talk about, the main difference between the three, I guess, safety net hospitals that you have or the residency that we have in the LA area, right? There's LA General, formerly known as LA County USC. There's Ronald Reagan, there's UCLA Ronald Reagan / Allevue, and then there's our program. And we're the three main LA programs. And further down south, you'll have like player programs like UCI, the Temecula program, UCSD, Eisenhower, Loma Linda, and so forth like that. But we're the three main ones in California. So I'll leave this up to the residents. That way they can talk about it. And I'll have my 2 cents in the very end.
So I think my understanding of UCLA Allevue comes from a lot of speaking to the residents there, and I think I can speak more towards what we have at Harbor. Our ED is huge. We see a huge set of pathology. I think they get to see a lot of it as well because they're serving a similar patient population up in, I believe it's Sylmar, where Allevue is located. So they're getting to see more of the Valley population. We're seeing more of the South Bay, Compton population. I believe our trauma rates are a little bit higher here. So we're seeing more trauma down here. Trying to think, there's also a difference in like the ortho that we see, and we're the transfer center for Allevue, where we get the TAVRs down here. So we see some sick cardiology patients that are transferred over from them. We see some sick ortho patients that are sent over from them. I believe it's hip fractures that we get from Allevue. But inherently, we're still DHS and we're still serving the same patient population, working within the same Cerner system.
This is one difference because I just got here. We're super close to the beach. Yeah. The location is different for like where you want to be. We're like South Bay, so a little bit more kind of laid back beachy. LA General is in like the downtown area, and then obviously UCLA, there's 2 sites. So one is like a little bit further north, and then one is like Westwood area, and kind of like West LA area. So that can also make a difference. But yeah, our location is pretty lovely.
I can chime in about this since I am from LA and I did both the Harbor sub-I and the UCLA Reagan Olive U sub-I. Um, so we heard a little bit about Harbor. So with LA County hospitals, there's Harbor UCLA, LA General, and then Olive U UCLA. Olive U is connected with the main use, like the UCLA EM residency program. Olive U is not a trauma center. So that is a big difference in terms of like the resources they have. They don't have a lot of subspecialties, so they often transfer patients down to us at Harbor or to LA General. At Harbor, we don't have a burn ICU. So when there are patients who have like really significant burns, we end up transferring them to LA General. But we do have a lot of other, like most other subspecialties. And then specific to UCLA Reagan, they're also a level 1 trauma center. But the types of traumas that you see are quite different, just given the demographic of that area. UCLA Reagan is in Westwood. It's like one of the wealthiest areas of LA. You will see like a lot of like blunt traumas, like mostly car accidents. And that's kind of what you'll see. You don't really get much penetrating trauma experience. Whereas at LA General and at Harbor, we do see a lot of penetrating trauma. So that is a big difference. And then I would say also UCLA Reagan, being a quaternary academic center, receives a lot of really complex patients, like patients who might have some genetic syndrome for which they're followed by like 50 million consultants. And then the moment they step in the ED, like the consultant's calling you, telling you what to do. Whereas like a county hospital, it's like a lot more like less of that, like really complex care patients, like more bread and butter type of EM, and a lot more autonomy, I feel, like to really work up your patients and try to figure out what's the best plan for them. But also I'm kind of biased. So I obviously chose Harbor because I had a great experience there. But there are like just different training environments for each. And it's just a matter of like, what's the best fit for you.
Thank you for that comprehensive answer. I think that wraps up all the questions on our form. We want to thank you guys all for joining us today. A couple of us dropped our emails and phone numbers in the chat on the right. You can take note of those and feel free to reach out if you have any other questions. And then we will send out another TinyLink URL for next webinar next month. Thank you all
And
for
you guys will
joining.
get all the PowerPoints, all the contact information. So this was recorded as well. So Joyce will have this on her drive with the links listed as well. So please, feel free to use that. And like I said, reach out to me, the residents, right? We'd love to have you guys rotate with us and show you why Harbor's a special place. So thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you guys so much.
Oh, Joyce and Hannah. Oh, hey.
Hello. All right.
Hannah's one of our graduates,
I
right?
missed the
She just had a
scram.
baby. Look at her. She's enjoying the beach.
Without my baby, it's great. Bye, everyone.
Yeah, see you guys.
Bye.